Chapter 34. Look at Minho, said Teresa to Thomas. It was the morning before the big day, the first intercession into the maze. 40 boys from Group A were lined up along the walls of the hallway, ready for the final medical examinations. Knew Minho and Abby and Gally, all the boys Thomas had gotten to know over the last few years of life, would be a part of the group. Orderlies and walked up and down the hall, prepping them to enter the medical rooms, taking temperatures, blood pressures, checking eyes, tongues. Yeah, I see him, Thomas replied. He and Teresa were at the Chancellor's Anderson Crest to observe and provide moral support, but all he felt was a heavy sadness at saying goodbye, and he'd stayed silent till arriving. Minho was about 10 doors away from where he and Teresa stood up, and he'd been fidgeting all morning. Man, Thomas thought, there's no way he'd try something again, right? Although there are plenty of things to upset their friend, inside medical schools, there were clearly of things to upset their friend. Inside medical rooms, it's clearly visible from their place in the hallways. My head. Follow my lead, Teresa said, as she pushed away from the wall and walked towards Minho. Thomas followed right on her heels. She had an air of authority about her, so the medical attendants barely glanced her way. She stopped when she got to Minho and put a right hand on his shoulder. He flinched, and for an instant Thomas thought he might actually strike out. But then his eyes met her ears, and a wave of calm seemed to wash over him. It's okay, Teresa said to him. Don't make it worse by fighting them. Aren't you going in with us? Minho asked. The response took Thomas and Teresa by surprise. Well, Teresa stammered. Not yet, Thomas quickly interjected, leaving it at that, hoping his friends wouldn't dig further. A hint of anger flushed through Minho's face again, but this time it said firm. Seriously? You're telling me not to fight them? Are you sure you don't mean us? Exactly what are you doing here, Thomas? I don't see you being poked and prodded like cattle. Yes, Abby, just a feet from the hall, turned to look at the three. Yeah, he said. He got a good point if you ask me. If you're just gonna throw us into a big experiment, then go back to your cush bread and relax. Were you ever going to tell us, or just let us think you were going in then? Surprise! Thomas had no idea what to say. He'd been able to convince himself that he was the same as his friends. They didn't care that he separated out. Okay, what? Then forget the script that you're supposed to follow, Abby asked. Or are you just worried upsetting your buddies? He nodded towards the doctors and nurses, who all continued their work as if nothing was happening. Guys, come on, Teresa said, finally finding her voice. We're no different from anybody else. We just do what they ask. Say whatever makes you feel better, Abby answered, as he folded his arms and leaned against the wall, looking the other way. They were understandably on edge. And the truth was clear. Minho flung Teresa's hand off his shoulder. Abby's right, he said. I've tried to give you guys the benefit of the doubt. I figured that you guys were going to help us, but now it's obvious what you're doing. You've been helping them the whole time. It's all about getting ready to do this to us, hasn't it? He pounded on the chest twice as he emphasized the words. Minho, listen. Get out of my face, Minho yelled. All the world was falling apart. Thomas could think of nothing to say. Abby, Minho knew. 5 minutes ago, he considered them his best friends and assumed that they understood his mind and heart. And now it just had all collapsed, and here he was, standing in front of them like a complete idiot. Anything that said sounded like a lie, even to himself. Out in the corner of his eye, he noticed someone approaching. He had Thomas, the boy yelled, picking up his pace. Only now it was closer to Thomas that his expression wasn't anger, it was fear. You have to help us. Can't you help us? Two orderlies grabbed the boy before he could get any closer, holding him back. We know you have some power with them. Please help us. He sounded desperate and struggled to keep his eyes on Thomas as orderlies roughly turned him around and dragged him into the exam room. Thomas felt less. Teresa, they had to know that they were all wrong, and he and Teresa weren't working with Wicked, really. They would help them, even into the maze themselves if they had to. He had to speak now. Thomas opened his mouth, ready to spill out the words, his pleas, his apologies. But something happened. Something deep inside his brain clicked as if a hand reached within his actual body and began to manipulate him, play with his nerves, his thoughts, his everything, as if possessed by an evil spirit. He lost complete control, lost it to someone or something else. He spoke with words against his will. I'm sorry, he said, a tone of pitch sounding as forging as if it came to another person altogether. There's nothing I can do. And then he watched, frozen, helpless, screaming on the inside, as they took his friends away.